Hi, and thanks very much for watching my talk. My name is Patrick Green. I'm a Human Frontiers Science Program Long-Term Fellow at UC Santa Barbara, but the work I'll be telling you about today, I conducted at the University of Exeter. I'd like to first thank all the people that made this project possible. Just highlighting a few, Beth Preston conducted the fieldwork as part of her PhD, and Nicholl did the video data collection during her master's. Megan is currently looking for PhD positions, so if this is at all interesting work to you, I'm really happy to tell you about how great Megan is. And then I'd also like to highlight the Banded Mongoose Research Project team shown here on the right. These are the people that are in the field every day doing the long-term data collection, and without their efforts, none of this would be possible. Okay, so for social living animals from termites to meerkats to chimpanzees, conflicts with members of rival groups are really common, and they're really important because they dictate access to essential and limited resources. So how does a group successfully win these contests and gain those resources while minimizing the costs to their group members? Well, one way groups might do this is through engaging in collective defense behaviors. And those are essentially when the group bands together and acts defensively towards the shared goal of repelling rivals. Now, we see examples of collective defense across taxa. For example, meerkats will engage in a collective war dance behavior before a contest, and green wood hoopos will use collective calling during a contest. And these are great examples of collective defense, but they also might get across the idea that we might expect group members to use more similar behaviors to their group mates in the face of an intergroup rival. That is, we might expect increased behavioral homogeneity within the group during an intergroup contest. And though we have some great examples of collective defense in the literature, relatively few studies have actually looked at behavioral homogeneity during these contests. Now, banded mongooses are a social living mammal in which intergroup contests are really common, can actually be quite costly, and in which collective defense and behavioral homogeneity might be really important. The way a banded mongoose intergroup contest works is first, at the beginning of a contest, group members will use collective war cry calls to gather group mates to them. Then groups will line up in what we call battle lines. So in this image, there's one line on the left and the rival group on the right. From these battle lines, individuals will engage in one-on-one contests, and then these groups will reconvene and use really intense scent marking behaviors within the group before the process starts again. Hopefully you can see that in this video. So there's one group on the bottom of the image and another group on the top of the video. You can see them in their battle lines lunging toward each other and then retreating in unison. And just about now in the bottom of the video, you'll see this group kind of jumble around each other, and that's that scent marking behavior. So hopefully these get across the idea that collective behavior could be really important in these contests, and we might expect individuals in the group to use similar behaviors as each other. So we went out to try and test if that was really the case. To do this, we used a simulated intrusion experiment that we conducted in two parts. The first part simulated the nearby presence of a rival group. So here we have our focal group of mongooses, and in their foraging path, we placed scent markings from a nearby rival group. We allowed the focal group to investigate for about 1.5 minutes, and then from a speaker that was hidden in nearby vegetation, we played war cry calls from that same rival group. Now later on that same day, we simulated the actual presence of members from that nearby rival. To do this, we collected 4 males from that rival group and then presented them in cages to the focal group. And I'll note here that we've done this type of protocol many times in this population, and we never see any detrimental effects. And all of our protocols here are cleared by the University of Exeter. So we videotaped these trials, and then we measured collective defense and behavioral homogeneity. For collective defense, we measured the proportion of the group that got within about 2 meters of the stimulus. So a greater proportion means the group is having a greater investment in collective defense. We also looked at the proportion of the group that was acting defensively, so attacking, scent marking, or acting vigilantly. Here we predicted increases in collective defense for rival stimuli as compared to own group controls. So these controls would be scent markings from the focal group itself, non-aggressive calls from that group, and then caged individuals, again, from the focal group. So in this example plot I'm showing here are sensor on the left, calls in the middle, intruders on the right. And we'd expect collective defense for the controls and the triangles to be lower than that of the rivals shown here in the circles. Now for behavioral homogeneity, we use the Shannon diversity score, also called the H index. So this is looking at the diversity of behaviors within the group. Now, what we're expecting here is lower values that actually indicate greater homogeneity in those behaviors. So again, for sense, calls, and intruders, we're expecting increased behavioral homogeneity, which is going to be lower values on that H index score. So as predicted, we did see increases in collective defense for our rival stimuli as compared to controls. So a greater proportion of group members approach the stimulus here for rivals than controls. And I'm showing you just sense and intruders here. Because that speaker was hidden in vegetation, we didn't measure this metric for call stimuli. We also saw a greater proportion of the group acting defensively. Again, this was only significant for sense and intruders. This was not significant for calls. Now, counter to our predictions, we actually saw a decrease in behavioral homogeneity, that is an increase in H index for rivals as compared to controls. Again, this was only significant for sense and intruders. This was not a significant difference for our call stimuli. What we think drove this decrease in behavioral homogeneity was actually a greater use and diversity of those defensive behaviors. So this plot is showing you the proportion of group members showing each of 6 behaviors we looked at. The defensive behaviors are shown in those orange colors. And if we look at the intruder stimuli as an example, and especially that rival intruders on the very far right, you see groups using attacking behaviors that they never used in any other context, as well as greatly increasing their use of scent marking. So we believe our results really do show that collective defense is important in this species, and this matches other results across taxa, including other mongooses, fish, lions, and termites. But we also think our results suggest that all individuals don't have to behave in the same way when a group is mounting a collective response. Behavioral homogeneity may have decreased in our system, potentially because of a division of labor. It might be that only a certain number of group members are needed to attack those rival group members, whereas other members of the focal group might be able to go off and act vigilantly, for example. There may also be a conflict of interest between the sexes. So during intergroup contests, female banded mongooses often will go off and try to attempt extra-group copulations with males from the rival group. In the future, we'll be able to actually individually track members during simulated intrusions like these. So we might get some more context for these questions. I'll quickly say at the end here that I'm in transit right now to Santa Barbara, so please get in touch with questions and ideas through any other means, and thank you very much for your time.